Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep.
I'm 1,000 winds that blow. I'm the diamond glints on snow. I am the sun on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain.
When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift, uplifting rush.
Of quiet birds in circling flight, I am the soft star shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die.
This is the first time I've interviewed a Holocaust survivor.
I don't have any family members that went through the war.
I've never met a Holocaust survivor before.
I've never met a Holocaust survivor before.
I have great-grandparents that were Holocaust survivors, but I never really talked to them.
I never got a chance to ask my grandparents what their story was like.
It's the first time I've ever really heard a survivor's story directly.
They said, no, it's not going to happen, it's not, but then he invaded and it happened, and it was very upsetting.
I was very, very young when the Holocaust started in our town. I heard a phrase in Russian repeated very often: kill the Jews, save Russia.
When the Germans came in, they occupied the town, they found the shul, and they burned the shul,
We had to start wearing yellow stars. We weren't as able to do anything.
My grandfather had a beard, and they were asking him where the money is, and they were tearing out his beard.
When people came into his grandfather's house and started ripping out his beard, I can't believe they did that. That people would do that to somebody else.
When we went to Warsaw, bombardment, and we thought it was a ghetto, a big line. And I was thinking to myself, will I ever be free in my life?
Well, we went into hiding. We were hiding in an attic for 9 months.
If I didn't have my brother, I don't know what I would do. It's like I can't believe people lost their siblings and their children.
They started to yell right and links in German. And my father said to us we should go close to him and we should say Shema Yisrael. And that's the last time that I heard his voice, never again.
You could feel what they're feeling and what they think about it.
From hearing these stories, I'm gonna benefit a better understanding of what actually happened.
The more people that know, the better it is.
I feel it is important to do the Nays Not Numbers for our generation, because it's the last generation that we're gonna have with actually meeting survivors.
And I want to be one to pass it on to future generations, their stories.
I am really excited to join this project and Names Not Numbers.
Our responsibility is to educate you and to relay and convey information. Names Not Numbers changes the paradigm. It's no longer that we are instructing and we're teaching and we're setting the modeling. Now we're asking you, 8th grade students, to take the responsibility of learning from the Holocaust survivors and then be in a position to relate and to teach it to others.
An important part of being on this project, which should not be minimized, is learning how to work together in a group. So think, hard and carefully about whether this program is for you and whether you want to participate. We certainly are encouraging you to participate in.
So that's what I recommend for you to do. Just take in every single moment, take in every single word to heart, and imagine if you were in their shoes. Don't be afraid to get emotional, to start crying. It's okay.
May 8th, 1945. World War II is over. The survivors were your age. They realize that they're left in the world with no one. If you wanted to tell anything of what had happened to you, the response of the people living around you was, couldn't happen. So obviously, if somebody tells you, I don't believe you, are you going to continue telling the story? No. But there were many Nazis that managed to escape, to run away, go to another country, change their name, change their identity. One of them was Adolf Eichmann. The Israelis kidnapped him in 1960 in Argentina, and they brought him to trial in Israel for all the horrific things that had happened to the Jews in World War II. The prosecutor, Gideon Hausner, who said he's going to bring witnesses, people. 112 survivors were brought to Israel to tell their story. This is the first time they are talking publicly, but more important is the world is listening to them. You are the tail end of this generation from 1960 up until today who can hear the stories from the survivors themselves.
I hope to gain more knowledge about the Holocaust because right now I don't know much, into detail. I know basic points, but I want to learn into more extent.
I chose to do names, not numbers, because I feel it is very important to know Holocaust survivor stories and know our history, where we came from.
I think it's important for our generation to do names, not numbers, because we're showing the people who don't think the Holocaust is real that it is, and it did happen, and it affected people.
And now I'm able to pass it on to the next generation and tell them that I heard it from a survivor.
I know it's very intimidating. You have to talk to a total stranger. And I want you guys to pretend you're just hanging with your friends at Starbucks. You're having a conversation with this person. Don't get hung up, oh my God, it's an interview, what if I say the wrong thing? Pretend you're with your grandpa, pretend with your grandma, or your favorite aunt. So think of it more as a conversation rather than an interview. Because how is a conversation different than an interview? It's two-sided as opposed to an interview where one person kind of has the power, one person's dominating. You want to have it more even in a conversation.
How did you feel after the war ended? I was happy, but we didn't really have anywhere to go because all of our community before the war was all burnt, and there was nowhere that we could fit in, and there's nowhere that we could go.
My great-grandma was a Holocaust survivor. Has anyone not ever met a Holocaust survivor?
I actually never met one. I have no relatives who were in the Holocaust.
Actually, my great-grandma was a Holocaust survivor.
I'm kind of nervous because it's coming from an older person, so understanding them is going to be a lot harder than us talking to you guys. How do you guys think that the kindergarten girls will learn about the Holocaust experiences?
We should show kids historical documents about what happened, where it happened, who did it, who was in charge.
The session today was interesting because we learned how to interview people better and what tactics we could use.
It's important to listen to the interviewer speak because it helps come up with follow-up questions and make the interview more meaningful.
Mrs. Vicker Fox gave us an exercise on journalism, and we had to look through someone's bags, and it was kind of like showing more about themselves and how everyone is unique.
So what I learned from this session was to ask questions about during, before and after the war. If you don't do research, you won't know what to ask them.
And I think it's really important that we pass along the story because we don't want it ever happen again.
Today, I came from school to the Jewish Heritage Museum, and we came here because we're trying to learn about the Holocaust.
And we went on a tour of the second floor, and we saw the artifacts from back then.
Your generation is the last group that will have the opportunity to get to know a Holocaust survivor personally. And you will be the witnesses to these people who were actually there. Let's take a few minutes and just do a little bit of a warm-up exercise. How many people say they're wearing consistent uniforms? They're all wearing the same uniform. How many people say they're wearing different uniforms? I see. Okay, you guys win. This is not a regular army unit. These are what are called partisans. They are members of the Jewish resistance.
Resistance is like when you're like fighting back or like you're pushing back. So like if something's like going smoothly, like the Germans and taking care of the Jews, and then like the resistance where people like fighting them.
One of the images that Dr. Ditsky gave us was an image of a very old pair of tefillin. When our group analyzed it, we realized that it was very old and it was buried in the ground because there was dirt on the straps.
So when Dr. Rudinsky was showing us all these pictures, it taught me how to like learn from my group and not just how to stick with my ideas and to be more open-minded.
It is important to learn how to analyze a picture for Holocaust research because it gives us a deeper understanding of what happened during the time that our ancestors lived and what they went through.
So if your survivor, and most likely your survivor will get emotional, they show it in different ways. If it's like crying or if it's like taking a moment and breathing, whatever it is. This angle is like this, is going to actually capture that emotion. Like if they cry, you'll see a tear. If they're taking a breath or a moment, you're going to like feel it with them because it's like close, it's intimate.
Today we did the filming technique session and we learned how to use the cameras and how to zoom in and like show how you're supposed to like, where you're supposed to have the person on which side of the screen.
And we tried focusing camera, we were testing the headphones, and I learned how to use the audio to make sure that there's no background sound in it.
I'm looking forward to doing the camera and the videoing part of the project.
I never actually knew how to use a camera before, and when we learned it today, it made me like more comfortable and know how to use it.
I was just expecting maybe a little bit less energetic, but she was really happy actually. She was fun, she was making jokes, she was really excited.
Today in school, we interviewed a Holocaust survivor, which happens to be my grandmother. It was a little bit scary that like something to my family happened like this, and that some of them died and were close to dying. And it was scary. It was just scary.
I was really nervous. I was scared. I thought it was gonna be really awkward. It wasn't that awkward. She was really nice.
I didn't want to like make him uncomfortable in any way by saying anything that was maybe either too personal or something that he didn't want to share.
I think it's unique to actually speak to the survivors because you can connect with them and you can like feel like you're in their shoes, and that helps you understand what their life was like.
I thought it'd be very one directional, where I would just kind of say a question and it would just be answered, but it was more interacting with her and the questions.
I was nervous before the interview because I didn't actually know what to expect. When I first met him, I would think that he wouldn't be such a happy person since he has been through such traumatic experiences. But when I met him, he was very upbeat and he was very happy and he was willing to talk about his experiences, and I found that to be very strong and very incredible.
I was born in Czechoslovakia, in the Carpathian Mountains, a small town, April 9th, 1925. I had my parents, I had an older brother, I had an older sister, then it was me, then it was a younger brother, plus aunts and uncles, grandparents. I was sewing. I made clothes. Shabbat was very nice. I mean, Friday we were busy cleaning, cooking, baking. Incidentally, we baked bread for a whole week. There was no bakery to go and buy it. And my father would go to shul, come home, and we would have our Shabbat dinner. And Saturday the same thing. My father and my mother would go to shul. They came home, we had our cholent, and then the afternoon was like social. I was born
in Munkac, Czechoslovakia, 1926. My parents were in business, in leather business and shoe store. They had a leather store and a shoe store. I had to go to public school because there was no really Besiakov or Jewish school for the girls in Munkac. But I got my education private, Jewish education. I was born in a strictly Orthodox family. My parents were strictly Orthodox. And I did not know what anti-Semitism exists because Munkac actually had a lot of Jews, 16,000 Jewish population. So I grew up in a religious atmosphere.
I was born January 25, 1942, in Marhaň, Czechoslovakia. My father was a builder and my mother was a housewife. I used to play with non-Jewish children as if they would be Jewish children. We had no friction. It was a very friendly environment. My father was working for the government. He was in charge of building bridges, and as a result, he was protected till the last minute that they could protect him.
I was born in Nisko, Poland. My father was a butcher, had a butcher shop. My grandfather was a chassid. He had a beard, big beard, and he would lead the study with us on Shabbos. My favorite high was Pesach. The memory was baking matzah. We were baking matzah at home. It was a very festive occasion with all the preparations. Financially, we were middle class, I would just say.
I was born in Poland, in a city once Alexandrów, then Warsaw, in 1927, July the 1st. I had father, mother, 3 brothers. We were 3 sisters. I was the youngest. His name was Shuli Wasserman, and we had a brush factory. We did all kind of brushes and all machines to make the, the top of the brushes. And we had a nice living. There was everything okay. The school, public school. I had to walk in the morning, The school was very nice. And I really was a good student. I was very ambitious to learn, Polish. But then I had at school during afternoon. I went to Bet Yankov, a Jewish school. It was very good living.
I'm born in Poland, in a town under the name of Brzesko. I was born on the 6th of August, 1928. My father used to be a very Orthodox man, We have been home 4 brothers. I was the oldest one. In the morning, I start by 7 o'clock already to go with the school together with the Polish guys. In the afternoon, when I came back home from the Polish school, I used to go to the cheder up to 7, 8 o'clock in the evening. We've got very good relationships with the Polish boys too. They love us and we love them, We've been playing together football, The life was very, very comfortable.
I was born in a town called Brasław, which was Poland at that time. My father was an accountant, and they both had a small inn. It was a typical town. It wasn't a little shtetl as you saw on the Fiddler on the Roof. Jews did not speak any other language in the house except Yiddish. I had quite a few little friends. None of them were Jewish, so I had to learn their language to be able to communicate with them. There was no anti-Semitism between us, at least I didn't know it.
I was born in Marseille, and I was the 10th child. I have other last names, Wolf and Corsia. One is from being adopted from the orphanage of the Oze, and the second one was marriage, and the Corsia is my real last name from France. My family was from Spain. Then they went to Oran, Algeria, which is the second largest town. And my mother had 10 children. They went to Marseille. And Marseille is a seaport. And it's the south of France. And when they got off the boat, my father saw an apartment. And he said, we'll move here, right by the seaport. They really didn't have much money. That's all I know.
First encounter was when the Hungarians eventually occupied where we lived. We had to start wearing yellow stars. We weren't as able to do anything.
1942, I was 16 years old. Then I started to feel scared because we started to feel anti-Semitism. Everything went bad since it started. They chased us out from the home. They made a ghetto in Munkac. They divided in two sides. And we were about 6 weeks in ghetto.
When they heard that the Nazis were coming, the government released my father and told him that he should take his family and just run. The Jews just left their homes and took whatever they could in their hands. Not much possession they could take with them, basically money. And this what really helped them to save their lives.
There was a Rosh Hashanah, and they put the shul on fire. They lit the people were in the shul, and they lit it on fire. Everybody ran out, and my uncle, he ran in, and he grabbed the Torah. And he came out with a Torah, and he ran with it, and he was able to throw the Torah into a well. Everything changed. There was no Jewish business. The stores were rampaged.
You see, I was a kid still too. A war broke up. We had to run to the basement, hide. And then now we knew it's a war, it's not a normal life. Of course I was afraid. You hear, and knocking bombs. And I was young too, maybe like you, or a year older than you. And then we say, let us go out. We took the train and we went to Warsaw.
Then all of a sudden, when in the 1st of September 1939, when the Germans came in, they occupied the town. They found the shul in the middle of the square of the town, and they burned the shul. When before I got bar mitzvah, it was already in the time when the Germans occupied our town. I've been bar mitzvah in 1941. It means about 2 years later, after the Germans came into my town.
I heard a phrase in Russian repeated very often: kill the Jews, save Russia. At that time, it was about almost 3.5, when the Germans came to town, they were bad and they were out to kill the Jews. I was taught not to cry because crying makes noise, and other things which no child my age had to learn, but I learned it very quickly.
Well, in 1940, Hitler and his army walked through the Arch of Triumph in France, and the people had to wear stars on their jackets. My father's friends came in, said to him, be careful because the Gestapo's looking for you. And he said, no, they're not going to take me. I have too many children. And a couple of days later, he's walking home at night, and the Gestapo come, and he was pushed into the convoy 52.
I chose to do this project because my father's family all survived the Holocaust.
Shows like whenever I have a problem, it doesn't even relate to what they went through in their life.
It's much different to like hear someone speak and then to like read about the Holocaust in a textbook.
It was announced with one of these horns. All the Jews, pack up what you can carry and report in school. From there, we were put into a brick factory. But as soon as we got there, they shaved the men's beards because most of the men had payas and beards. And my grandfather was there. And as soon as his beard came off, he looked like dead, his color, and a week later he died. Then we were transferred to Auschwitz-Birkenau. The train, it's a cattle train, cattle car. We were squished in it. There was one little window on top, and there was a barrel or whatever you would call it. If we needed to go, they took it out once a day. We didn't know what was happening, whether they were going to kill us or we didn't know. Well, at first we smelled and we saw the flame, and they said it was a bakery. But then when we were placed in a barrack and given the tattoo numbers, which I have, one day we were very, very noisy, and the girls, the couples, said, "What are you so noisy about? What are you so happy about? Don't you know your mother's father, sisters and brothers burning there?" We got black coffee and a slice of bread for breakfast. No lunch. And dinner, there was a soup that was potato peels. We were always hungry.
We had to line up, and they marched us from the ghetto. We did not know where they taking us. That we wind up in the brick factory. Then after 2 days in brick factory, we wind up in the cattle wagon with no food, no water. All the children, grown-ups, old people, crying. We had no air. We had no idea where they taking us. And after a couple of days, they opened the doors, and we just saw a big flame going. We had no idea what that is. And there was the Nazis and the capos, and they just took us off from that cattle wagon. And they separate us from the family. I wound up with my 2 sisters. We heard the stories that we should not mention that we are sisters because Mengele is the doctor of death. And he was the one that separated the sisters, if he knew where sisters are. After a couple of months later, and they was selecting people for what we had no idea. And they picked me out. So I was worried what's gonna be with my 2 sisters. Somebody was in charge, so I told that girl, "Don't look, let me go back to my sister." And she gave me over to the SS woman. So the SS woman started to hit me wherever she just could reach. So I was bleeding all over. And that woman did not look at a minute for me. And I went and I dragged my 2 sisters with me, next to me, because we decided what's gonna be with one, we should be with all 3. So I was lucky, and now we were continued to be with the 3 sisters together.
We went into hiding. We ran into forests and hid in bunkers until we escaped into a little village where we found a farmhouse, and we asked if we could just stay overnight in their attic. My parents, my 2 sisters, my father's brother and his son. We were hiding in an attic for 9 months. The farmers that we were at their home took care of us. They brought every morning food. My father was ill at the time, and the older lady, she made sure that he gets his diet food that he needed. They really took care of us like incredibly, meaning during the war when food is not available, we did not feel any hunger. They provided us with whatever they could to make us comfortable.
We were able to go to a friend of my father's, a Polish farmer, to hide us in the farm. My direct family members that came with me was my grandfather, my grandmother, my mother, and me. My mother took her sewing machine, and she carried that machine on her back, and that machine fed us for a long time. We lived in a basement, and the animals were on top of us. And I remember only that when the animals relieved themselves, we got down into the basement. But we stayed in that basement for 8 months. What happened was that the Polish farmer's son one time got drunk, and he threatened his father that he will chase the Jews out from the farm. And our life was in danger. So we had to leave into the woods. When we went to the woods, And we stayed in the woods for a while, and then we couldn't do it no more. So we went to a town called Zimna in Poland. The Polish government took all these people that were there, including us, and put us into a freight train, into that box. And we stayed in that train for, I think it was about 2-3 weeks, and they took us to Siberia. The journey itself was torturous. You come to a point that it's so treacherous, you don't feel pain anymore.
When we went to Warsaw, you know, bombardment, and we thought it was a ghetto. If we lived maybe a year or two under not good condition. I was the kid, I know mother, father tried to make it good, we should survive. It came the Germans, they took us an Umschlagplatz. From there they shipped us out and we went to Auschwitz. What could I tell you? Every day in the morning when we went out was like piles of dead bodies, you know, laying around. Because was starvation. And one time I was in gas chamber too. The lucky thing that it was not stuffed up with a lot of people. So they let us out for next time.
And the whole town has been occupied with about 20 or 10 trucks with SS. They came down to the Jewish buildings, they went into the doors with the arms and they step out only who was in the front of the eyes. About 1,000 people have been taken out from this, in this day, to the concentration camp in Berzec, together with my mom, with my brother. My father, he went out from the ghetto in the middle of the night. He took a carriage with a horse from a goy, and he took us out, you know, me and my father and my grandparents. We went to other town under the name of Bochnia. Over there we came in. It was the town where my mom has been born with the whole family. And after a year, it happened the same what it was in Brzesko, in the other town, you know. From the ghetto, they took all the 6,500 people, and he was selecting. Me and my father, they took to the right-hand side. The other people, my grandpa, has been sent together with the old women and old men with the children to the left-hand side. So from this old mess, he took out 1,500 people like me, like my father, and we have been sent to a labor camp under the name of Shebnia. All of a sudden, you know, the next few days, we have been taken, all of us, you know, not to the sanatorium, only to Birkenau Auschwitz. And then I have been kept over there in a block, together with 420 people. We have been in the barracks, very bad conditions, very bad conditions.
And I was sitting by the window. I saw a bunch of people riding bikes. They had rifles. I said in Yiddish, "Dort kommen die Deutschen mit den großen Beitschen." Here come the Germans with the big whips. They took all the Jews and put them in a small area of town, and they put barbed wire around us, except for one thing. Our back of the house faced a lake. Several families moved into our house. My house wasn't touched. All the borders were closed. And since that time, I never saw my father. So I had to depend on my mother. She insisted that we build a hiding place. And one night I was woken up and I was told to quickly get into the hiding place because the Germans were down the street and they were going from house to house picking up the Jews. In the hiding place, we simply could not talk. One of the people in it was a little newborn, was maybe 3-4 months old, and she started crying, and her parents put a pillow on her to stop her, and when they took the pillow out, the pillow off, she was dead.
In France, while I was a baby, I was in the hospital at a year old, and the nurse saved my life. The Gestapo came and they asked, and she said, who are you looking for? And they said, we're looking for the Corsia baby. The nurse said, no, there's no Corsia baby here. My sister put my other sister in the Jewish orphanage, the Ozek. My orphanage was La Petite Mode, and they did it by age group. So we were both in Paris, but we never saw each other. And the man who ran our orphanage was the same man, Mr. Job. When the Gestapo came to the orphanage, they would put us, the Jewish people, underground, and we were in a dark room like a closet. And you couldn't cough, you couldn't talk, anything. And we could hear the footsteps up above with the soldiers walking. So we had potatoes and bread, and apple was like a big thing to us. And you just had to hold on to your stuff.
My work was not difficult because we were in a barrack. We were sorting what people brought in, like people would have in their bundles a piece of bread, a cookie, a candy. There was something that if we found it, secretly we ate it. Emotional at first, but later, like we were numb. When my sister was separated, we didn't cry. We knew that she wasn't going to live, but we didn't cry. When I was separated from my mother, there was no emotion.
The job, there was a factory that we did little lamps to the aeroplanes. I had to work like 15, 16 hours a day. So one girl who was also working in the same factory, and we were in the same bunk, so I asked her not to produce so much because my back hurts and I can't work so hard. So she, for a piece of bread, she told the German woman what I told her. So naturally that German woman told our SS woman who was in charge of the camp. And the SS woman came into the factory and she started to yell, Drei Geschwister sabotage. That means the three sisters were sabotaging, that's me. And to be hanged. The manager of the factory, he was chasing her out and told her that if they're gonna hang us, then the whole production is not gonna be the same. So that's how I got saved.
My mother had to make a split of a moment decision what to do. If the Germans will hear my cry, everybody in the attic will be killed, and so the people that saved us downstairs. She grabbed a pillow and stuffed it over my face to try to quiet down my crying. She claimed that I was almost turning blue. If those Germans would not have walked out, it was a miracle. They walked out after a few minutes and she had the chance to remove the pillow from my face. But she claimed that I was literally turning blue. If another few seconds they would not leave, she had no other choice than sacrificing one child for both families.
We wound up at the border of East Germany with West Germany. There was no one building standing left in that town. There was all ruins. So what they did, they built a box for me. They put me in the box. And the box was sent to West Germany. The Russians caught me. They caught the box because I sneezed. And they put us in jail. But there was a Russian colonel that was a Jewish guy. he somehow managed to get us out of there. And they took us into trucks and shipped us to West Germany.
And we went to a trace to Majdanek. When we went out, there were selections. You know, the Nazi, the SS, made links, rechts, links you die. Young children could not live. They put it on the other side. But I saw, and my mother, she was 62. She was there too. They pushed her to the links and I was on the good side. When I saw this, how could I live without my mother? I ran from all the ways to be with my mother, and she made like this. Next day, I didn't see her no more. And I had from my sister, little girl, Leah. I said, you're gonna see, you're gonna be everything okay, with the head down. Next day, she wasn't there. They took him all to the guest chambers. And one time, he made me to die to the left. But when I ran to the barn, to the end, a lot of people, I kind of came in again in the line, and this time they let me too. I was never sure that I'm gonna survive.
They want to have about 200 volunteers to go out from here, from this Birkenau Auschwitz camp, to other camp. So I went out with my father together with other 200 people from this block, and we came into another camp about 13 kilometers from Birkenau Auschwitz. So I asked, what are you doing here? They say we are going from here to the coal mines. That put me together with a Polish guy. He was 34 years old, twice like me. I used to work with him. I would work 1 month, 2 months. And one day he says for his wife, listen, I have a boy, you know, a Jewish boy. He works with me so good. If you make me a sandwich in the morning, please make me another one for him too. Now you can imagine my father, 39 years old, in the night shift. He hasn't got this what I have got. He said to me, we are going to split each other. I want to bench you. I want to bench you. He put his hands on my head. He benched me. After 1 year and 3 months that I've been working in these coal mine camps, they kick us out, all 2,000 people from the camp, together with another 2,000 people from another camp, and then about 500 women camps. Also, altogether about 4,500 people. We're supposed to go on the Dead March. It was very, very bad. When I came to Buchenwald after the Dead March, I've been staying there 4 months.
First of all, we were in the hiding place for about 2 weeks, approximately. The men in our group knew the area very well, and we also spoke 4 languages. We went out, we went into the lake, made a right turn, and we walked during the night, and by sunrise, we left the lake. And as we walked, we came to a crossroads, and at the crossroads was a German tank with German soldiers. Well, again, we had no choice. We couldn't run, they'd kill us on the spot. So we walked towards them, and they asked us who we were, and the men said we were local farmers. And as I say, we didn't have very much with us, you know, and we spoke Russian, Polish, Belarusian, and Yiddish, of course. Well, we certainly didn't speak Yiddish to them, and they let us go.
I went into the orphanage when I was a year, and I stayed there till I was 4.5. There was an American lawyer, Mr. Simandl. He would come to France and go around all the OZs and take pictures of the children. And then he would come back to South Orange, where his office was, and he would lay out the pictures, and then the people who were going to adopt would say, I want this one, that one. So the Wolf family saw my picture, and they said, oh, we'll take her. and I was 3 at that time. But I couldn't come over right away because I had impetigo, which is a dirt disease from the orphanage, and I couldn't travel. I was friends with this one girl, Mimi, but she changed her name years later. And I don't remember anybody else because I came over with Mimi on the Queen Elizabeth. January 14th, I left when I was 4.
Then at for roll call, and we were waiting and waiting and waiting, and nothing, nobody comes to count us and said, take us to work. And down the hill was a train station. And there was a lot of action at the train station, but we didn't know what was happening. But we were free, well, then it was like, okay, I'm free. Do I have anybody left? I don't know.
2 weeks later, on April 15th, the British liberated us. So that was a big relief. We were like almost skeletons. Everybody, they were very good, the British. They were taking care of us.
It was announced and we were free to go. When we were liberated, I was around 6 years old.
When the American army came into the main gate of the camp in Buchenwald, there was the first jeep with 4 soldiers, American, because they've been very worried, to go in. They didn't know where they are. And then they hear that a lot of people are sick and typhus and dysentery. They didn't want to come in so quick. I say for the other kids, Yeshua is coming,
We decided we were going to start going home. And I said to my friend, I said, Helen, let's get off the train. So I just had a feeling I should get off the train. And she said no. I went into the station house and I see that a woman leaned against the desk like this. And when she saw me, she said, Heidi Müller? I says, yes. She says, your mother. Like there she goes, your mother. I says, what's with my mother? She's here. That I never expected my mother to be alive. It's indescribable. It's indescribable because I had the feeling I have somebody. I am not alone in the world. My husband was quite a bit older than I. He was married before the war, but he lost his wife and his children. I came July 17, 1947, to New York.
So found out that I have 2 brothers that survived. In every big city, in Budapest or in Prague or in other cities, they put up soup kitchens for the survivors, and they put up names who they know that they live already. So in the soup kitchen, my brother found our names, and that's how he got connection, that we were in Prague and they were in Budapest. So he came to pick us up, and that's how we got together. We settled in a place called Cheb, Czechia, and then I met my husband, and that's how life started.
We went to Israel through Italy. We came and we arrived to Haifa, to the port city Haifa, and we settled in downtown Haifa because my mother had a cousin there. My mother unfortunately couldn't get over losing her 2 little boys, and she had been crying endlessly, and it really affected her sight. The interesting thing was that Milka's dream was to meet once before she dies the people that she saved. When she saw us, she was very excited, and she says, now I can die in peace. Her only wish was to see once more the people that she saved. And really, she died 3 months after we left.
We were into a camp called in Berlin, a DP camp. There we were supported by the Americans. So we got some food once a day. And then for 3 more years, I was in Berlin. And then from Berlin, came to the United States. I came to the United States in 1951, June 1st, on a ship called Liberty. Still remember.
And we went from this place in French to other camp, you know, in Marseille. You know, other refugees together with us. About 1,500 people, we went on a boat. We arrived to Israel on the 15th of July 1945. We have been starting to sing Anu Banu Arza Livnot Libanot Ba. We learn how to use arms and to be able to watch ourselves around the Gush Etzion. I was fighting over there about 5-6 months. The Arabs that took me to the prison together with 350 boys together with girls. Now you can imagine after the 5 years of the Holocaust, it's not enough only to be kept in a prison in Jordan for another 10-11 months. After the prison, I came back. I've been already 19 years old. 19 years old and 49. And I was supposed to go into a home of my friend that has been killed in Gush Etzion. It's already the 8th time that I've been survived, you know, from the Holocaust, from the fightings in Gush Etzion, from the prison. So in that time, you know, in home from this boy, you know, has been a girl, 19 years old, Shoshana. I've got friendly with this girl, you know, Shoshana. And after 3 years, I asked to marry her.
We were on this train for a few days, and it was Pesach time. And the train stopped, and they brought us some presents from Manischewitz, matzah and herring. And the train took us into Germany, and here we became German Jews. And they put us into displaced person camp, DP camp. I went to the Cheder, you know, with the Rabbi, and we learned Chumash and other things. So I had a fairly good Jewish education. And from there, we went to the town of Bremen. Bremen is a seaport. And we got on a ship. It was a military transport. And from Bremen, actually Bremerhaven, we went to the United States.
So when we got off the boat, February 9th, 1948 in New York, there was snow. First she took Mimi, the other little girl, and then she took me, and I hugged my father and my mother, and I had a brother. And my father had a huge car. It was a Cadillac. It was like a boat to me. And then seeing New York with the high buildings and big streets, because in Paris they're narrow. And then we go to my house, which was like a castle to me. And then my mother shows us around, the chaperone and I, because they don't speak French. Then we go into the kitchen, and my mother's telling me to sit down, and I don't understand, so she taps me on my arm, sit down. So I sit down, she's asking me what I want. I said an apple, because that was a treat for us, you know, in the orphanage. So she peels the apple and she puts it in the bowl. And she puts the bowl in front of me, and I take my hands and I hold on to the bowl, and I'm eating like this. And she says to chaperone, why is she eating like that? And she says, because the children take the food if you don't hold on to it. So she's trying to tell me no one's going to take your food here, you know.
Today with Mrs. Finkelstein, we learned the techniques of editing and how to edit our interview down to a certain amount of time.
Today we learned how to use the editing timesheet to figure out how to cut down the movie and take the parts that we really need.
We wrote down the time code in order to identify which information will be in the film.
Our goal as editing the movie is to take the most important facts so that we get like what's really needed in the story.
A lot of the times when we daven, we look at our tefillah as us davening, and we say words to Hashem. Think about it as a phone. Because whenever I talk into the phone, what else am I doing? I also have to be listening. I have to be listening to say, when I ask Hashem for something, am I also looking for the answers? And if we keep making sure that we're asking Hashem, and you should ask Hashem to be involved in your life, look for Hashem's answers. They're there. We just need to keep looking.
So it's very important for you to be proud as a Jew.
I feel really inspired after this because I realize how far the Jewish people, the Jewish community has come.
He said to me, Berish, my son, I don't know if I will see you again, but you will survive. Please stay a Jew, he said to me.
We really, as Jews, need to appreciate our culture and our religion because people have worked so hard in order to maintain their Judaism, and it's important that we appreciate that and really honor that.
And we have to be very grateful for our faith.
We buried a lot of stuff, like my tefillin and my father's tefillin and the tallit. I have my tefillin today, and I'm giving it to my grandson, Ben.
That sometimes you might lose hope, but that doesn't mean that you should ever give up your faith.
I never forget when a woman told me that, 49 for when you want to read it together, it's 18. And she said, you'll survive.
I can't believe that even at this traumatic time, other people can go to other people and give them hope.
They never give up. So instead of just saying we're gonna lose and it's never gonna happen, they kept moving and they kept believing in Hashem.
So I made myself a cheshbon in my head. If I have to die, I was prepared for it because I was taught that I had such a nice life. Grew up in a beautiful family with love, surrounded with love.
The Holocaust, it's such a big event, and it affects, even if it doesn't affect us, our family personally, it affects all of the Jewish people, and we should all be involved and understand how extreme it was.
You're young kids, and you know what experiences we had, and we would, I would not want any one of you to experience anything like this.
I'm inspired to keep learning about what happened in the Holocaust and how to stop anti-Semitism and to keep being proud that I'm a Jew.
Appreciate your school by doing for you, and your teachers, and your parents.
We shouldn't just look at the bad things, we should see things and try to look at the positive.
Stop fighting. There's no reason for people to fight.
We survive no matter what. No matter how hard, whatever hardship we had, we all survived.
Well, I would recommend doing this project because as Jews, we really should know about what our religion experienced, and we really need to know about like everything that happens to Jews. Like we learn what happened back then, and we need to learn what happened now too.
If there are any people who are like not sure if they should do this project, I'd say you should definitely do this project because there aren't going to be so many more survivors for so long. And if you have the opportunity to interview them and talk to them about their story, you should definitely do it.
And it's got to be told because this can't happen again. We can't forget. And it has to be definitely spoken about, everywhere.
I think a really important lesson that I learned is that America, the United States really respects us and we appreciate that, but you never know what could happen because in Germany, the Jews felt very comfortable with their lives. They had good lives, but it was shocking that Hitler came to power and he could do such an awful thing to them.
And that's why you have to be a Jew. It is very important because assimilation in this country is horrendous.
This makes me feel that even in the hardest tragedy, you still need to have hope and things can go the right way in the end.
The biggest lesson that I'm walking away with today is that I should always appreciate what I have because someday it could always be gone.
The title Names Not Numbers makes me feel like happy that we as Jews, we have an identity. We are us, and the Nazis try to take that away, just giving us numbers, no more identity. But we survived, they didn't, and we have our names.
And I wish you, all of you, that you should, in the future, build up a family like I do it, שיתגשמו כל משאלות לבנו לטובה, ושנראה נחת אחד מהשני, שפע ברכות, והצלחה רבה בכל מעשיכם. אמן.
We are Rachel's children, and we carry her name. We are Rachel's children, and we light her flame. We see her strength, her dignity, we know her sacrifice. We are Rachel's children, calling her name. We are Rachel's children, and we bear her pain. We are Rachel's children, may it not be in vain. Buried alone, Bethlehem Road, no peace within her soul. We are Rachel's children, crying her name. Jerusalem to Odessa, from Hebron and throughout the diaspora. She is our soul, she is our heart, our loving matriarch. We are Rachel's children, calling her name. Children, more than 3,000 years. We are Rachel's children, and we share her tears. May we learn, may we return, for days of old we yearn. We are Rachel's Rachel's children, calling her name. We are Rachel's children, together in prayer. We are Rachel's children, now and forever. Survivors of the ghetto, scars that still remain. We are Rachel's children, crying her name.